This whole thing started about 8 months ago, and I still can't believe it actually happened to me. I'm Marcus. I work in construction, and I never thought I'd be the guy who falls for someone so completely different from my world. But here we are. The sound that cable made when it snapped is something I'll never forget. It wasn't like metal breaking at all. It was sharp and sudden, like a gunshot in a quiet room. My body moved before my brain even caught up. I didn't yell because yelling wastes air, and in that moment, air was everything. I planted my feet, tightened my grip on the hydraulic jack, and leaned my entire shoulder into it. That jack was the only thing holding up the main support beam of this massive old ballroom I was working in. I said, "Don't move," and my voice came out way calmer than I felt. Everyone in the room just froze. Dust was hanging in the air like it was suspended in time. About 50 feet above us, this enormous crystal chandelier started swaying. Slow at first, then getting wider and wider. This thing was huge, probably weighed as much as a small car, and it was hanging directly over one person. Her name was Elena Moore. She was standing perfectly still, with her eyes wide open, just staring up at this chandelier, swinging back and forth above her head. She didn't scream or run or anything. She just stood there, in this cream-colored business suit, holding a clipboard, like somehow that was going to protect her. Even in that crazy moment, I noticed she didn't panic like most people would. "Marcus," she whispered, and her voice was shaking just enough for me to hear it. "I've got it," I said, while pushing harder on the jack. My back felt like it was on fire. My arm felt like they were literally tearing apart. The steel was groaning, and then slowly it shifted. I could feel the weight moving. The chandelier above us started swaying less and less until it finally steadied. 3 steps back, I told her. Go slow. She did exactly what I said. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. The second she was clear of the danger zone, I finally let myself breathe out. She leaned against this sawhorse with one hand pressed against her chest, trying to catch her breath. I locked the jack in place, wiped my hands on my work pants, and walked over to check on her. The air smelled like old plaster and hot metal, and something soft and expensive. Vanilla, maybe. Her perfume. "You need to evacuate this entire wing," I said. "I don't sugarcoat things ever. That cable is completely corroded. If I hadn't been testing the load right then, that chandelier would have come down on you." She looked up at me, and her eyes were dark and sharp. I could see fear in them, but also this calculating look, like her brain was already working on a solution. "We have a Valentine's gala in 6 weeks, she said. "The board is coming for a walkthrough in 2 days. If they see this, they'll condemn the building." I looked up at the rigging. It was old and beautiful and dangerous. If they don't see it, I said, someone gets killed. "I can't lose this place," she said quietly. Then she straightened her jacket like she was putting on armor. "Mr. Harrison is looking for any excuse to sell this land. Can you fix it?" I studied the cracked beam and the rusted anchors. Then I looked back at her. She was scared, but she wasn't backing down. "It's a heavy job," I said. "Yes, it'll be expensive and dirty, and we'll have to work nights so inspectors don't shut us down before we can get the permit secured." "I don't care about the hours," she said. "I'll be here with you." That was the moment everything changed for me. The Moore Heritage Hall was this old building from the early 20th century. Stone and oak and money soaked into every single wall. My jobs are usually pretty simple. Move the heavy thing. Make it safe. Leave. I wasn't supposed to care about politics or drama, but the politics showed up the very next morning. Nathaniel Harrison was leaning against the reception desk when I arrived. Expensive suit, fake smile, gold watch that he kept tapping like he owned time itself. "Elena," he said, in this sweet voice that made my skin crawl. "I heard there was an incident yesterday." I froze on the scaffolding above them, just listening. "Routine maintenance," Elena replied smoothly. She was standing at the base of my ladder holding blueprints. "We're upgrading the suspension system." Harrison squinted up at me. "And this man is qualified to work on a historic trust property?" "Mr. Reed is the best rigging specialist in the state," Elena said. "His rates reflect that." Harrison smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just remember, one violation, one missed permit, and the board votes to liquidate. Don't let sentiment get in the way of profit." When he left, the air felt about 20 degrees colder. "He knows," Elena said quietly. "Someone is feeding him information. Then we give him nothing," I said, climbing down. "I can brace the main beam from the inside. It'll be invisible from the floor. But I need the hall completely empty. Just you and me." She studied my hands. They were scarred and rough with grease still under the nails. "Why me?" she asked. "I need someone I trust on the controls," I said. That was only part of the truth, though. She nodded slowly. "Tonight. Midnight. Midnight in a ballroom feels wrong. The shadows stretch too far, and the silence feels heavy, like it's pressing down on you." We worked for hours that first night. Sweat soaked through my shirt. Elena rolled up her sleeves, and her hair started slipping loose from this perfect bun she always wore while she monitored the pressure gauges. She learned fast. I really liked that about her. When I climbed down after the first weld, my legs were shaking with exhaustion. She handed me a bottle of water, and our fingers brushed. I felt this spark run straight up my arm. "You're good at this," she said. "It's just physics," I replied. "Gravity wants everything down. I convince it not to." She rubbed her temple, looking exhausted. "I feel like gravity is winning lately." "You're not hiding," I said. "You're fighting." She looked at me like nobody had ever said that to her before. That night when I told her to get some sleep and watched her walk away, I knew the job wasn't just about steel anymore. It was about her. And somehow, without meaning to, I had stepped into something that was already pulling at both of us, harder than any cable or beam ever could. Part 2. The next week just blurred together in this mix of dust and steel, and this quiet tension that never really left the room whenever we were together. We worked before sunrise and after midnight, always careful, always watching who came and went through the building. Fatigue has this way of stripping people down to their raw edges, you know. And I saw it happening to Elena more each day. That calm director face she wore in public would crack when nobody else was around. Her shoulders would sag when she thought I wasn't looking. Her hands would tremble when she thought the building might hear her doubts. I noticed everything about her by then. I was under the stage reinforcing floor joists when I heard raised voices above me. "It's irresponsible, Elena." That was Harrison snapping at her. "You're pouring money into this building like water." I stopped turning the wrench. My chest tightened up. "Reed is getting it done," she shot back. Her heels were pacing right over my head, fast and correctly. "People are talking," Harrison said, lowering his voice. "You're here late. He's here late." It doesn't look professional." My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. "My schedule is none of your business," she said, and I could hear the anger in her voice. "It is when it affects the reputation of this institution," he replied. "We can't have the director playing house with the hired help." That did it for me. I crawled out from under the stage just as his footsteps retreated, and a door slammed somewhere. Elena was standing center stage with her arms crossed tight, just staring at nothing. "I can quit," I said quietly. She spun around. "Don't you dare. He's using me to get to you," I said. "I'm a liability to men like him. Everyone is," she snapped. Then her anger just drained away, leaving her looking tired and exposed. "I feel safe when you're here, Marcus. I haven't felt that in a long time. I stepped closer. The space between us felt charged like the moment right before lightning hits. "Then I'm staying," I said. "But we do this my way. No shortcuts." She nodded. "Deal." After that, we fell into something that felt almost domestic. I brought strong black coffee in this battered thermos every morning, because I learned she hated it lukewarm. She started leaving wrapped sandwiches on my toolbox because she noticed I always forgot to eat when I was working. We didn't talk about it. We just did it. But one night this massive storm slammed against the stained glass windows. Rain was hammering the roof so hard, the lights kept flickering. "At least the roof isn't leaking yet," she joked. "You're an optimist," I said. "I'm a realist," she replied. "But I still believe some things are meant to last." She was sitting on the floor, sorting fabric swatches for the gala. Red velvet, white silk, hope laid out in neat little squares. "My parents built this place together," she said softly. "I always wanted a partner, you know, someone who carries the heavy end." "I'm good at heavy lifting," I said. She looked up at me, and her eyes were soft in the dim work lights. When I offered my hand to help her up, she took it. Neither of us let go right away. Her forehead rested against my chest, and I wrapped my arms around her carefully, like I was bracing something fragile, but important. She whispered that she was tired of hiding how she felt. Then, I told her. We stayed like that until the storm passed, and the building settled around us. I didn't want to let her go, but eventually we had to get back to work. The real disaster didn't come from the roof, though. It came 3 days later with a clipboard and a nervous-looking guy in a cheap suit. A new inspector showed up with Harrison right beside him, looking way too pleased with himself. The inspector slapped a red tag on the scaffolding and ordered an immediate shutdown. "Unsafe wiring, unpermitted structural work," he said, reading from his clipboard. Serenity ran in, and I could see panic all over her face. "You can't do this," she said. "And the gala is in 2 weeks. Safety first," Harrison said, smiling that fake smile. Using unlicensed contractors is a serious issue. I knew right then something was wrong. I went straight down to the basement. The exposed wires were too clean, too fresh-looking. Someone had cut them on purpose. I documented everything with my phone. Photos, tools that had been left behind. Proof. When I laid it all out upstairs, Harrison's smile twitched just for a second, but the damage was already done. He pushed for an emergency board vote to remove Elena and sell the building. 3 days. That was all she had. She stopped answering my messages after that. I sat in my truck across the street from the hall for hours, with rain streaking down the windshield, knowing I could walk away. I could take another job, make more money, forget all of this. But I couldn't forget her face, the way she looked when she thought she was losing everything. So I stayed. I dug through city records and old blueprints. I found loopholes and emergency clauses. I found a way to prove the building was safe and that Harrison had lied about the violations. Friday night, the board met in the lobby. Elena stood at the podium, dressed in black, looking small and exhausted. I walked in with the city engineer right behind me. The room went completely silent. When the truth came out, when the evidence hit the table, Harrison tried one last move. He accused us, made it personal, tried to shame her in front of everyone. That's when Elena did something I will never forget. She walked toward me, took my hand right there in front of the entire board, and said she was done hiding. The room shifted. The power changed. And standing there holding her hand in front of everyone, I realized something simple and terrifying. This wasn't just about saving a building anymore. It was about choosing her. And I already had. The moment Elena took my hand in front of that board, the room felt like it tilted. Not the building, but the people in it. Whispers spread fast and sharp and hungry. I didn't squeeze her hand tighter. I just stayed where I was, solid, the way a support beam stays put even when everyone else is panicking. "Yes," she said again, and her voice was steady now. "I am seeing Mr. Reed." Harrison's face went pale, then dark red. He tried to laugh it off, but it sounded thin and desperate. "This is a conflict of interest," he snapped. "You've compromised your position." Before Elena could answer, the city engineer stepped forward. "Oh, the building is now stabilized and verified," he said. "The red tag comes down tonight." That took all the wind out of Harrison. He tried to argue, but the board members were already shifting in their seats. Lawsuits were apparently louder than pride. "Enough," the board chairwoman said. "The gala proceeds. We'll revisit leadership later." Harrison stormed out without looking back. When the room finally emptied, Elena turned to me. Her eyes were glassy, but she was smiling. "You came back," she whispered. "I told you I said. I don't walk away when things get heavy." She laughed softly, then pressed her forehead against my chest, just like before. This time she didn't pull away, and I didn't want her to. The days leading up to the gala were like the calm after a storm. Still busy and tense, but hopeful in a way that felt real. The hall felt alive again. Staff moved around with purpose instead of fear. The chandelier hung steady above the ballroom, and my steel was holding firm. Every time I looked up at it, I felt this pride settle deep in my chest. Elena stopped hiding after that board meeting. She walked the halls with her head high. When Harrison's name came up in conversations, she shut it down with facts, and this calm confidence that honestly did something to me. I wasn't just attracted to her anymore. I respected her in a way I'd never respected anyone before. 2 nights before the gala, she found me alone in the ballroom checking the tension one last time. "You don't have to stay late," she said. "I always stay late," I replied without looking up. She smiled and stepped closer. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the lights overhead. "I meant stay," she said gently. "After this. After the gala." I set my tools down and turned to face her. "Elena," I said, "I don't know how to be half in with anything." She nodded. "Good. Neither do I." She reached for my hand this time. No hesitation at all. We didn't rush it. No drama or big declarations. Just 2 people standing under a chandelier that had almost fallen, choosing to trust what held us together. The night of the gala finally arrived, and the hall was dressed in red and gold. Music filled every corner. Laughter bounced off the walls that had nearly failed just weeks before. I stood off to the side in a black shirt and jacket, feeling completely out of place among all the expensive suits and fancy dresses. Elena found me anyway. She always did. She kept her hand on my arm the entire night, like she was claiming me in front of everyone. When she gave her speech, she spoke clearly and confidently, thanking the donors and the staff and the people who believed in the hall. Then, she looked directly at me. The strongest things she said are not always the prettiest. They're the ones that hold when the storm comes. Applause filled the room, but I didn't hear much of it. She stepped down from the stage and walked straight to me. She handed me a red rose, simple and public and certain. To the heavy lifter, she said softly. I leaned in close. "Your contract's still valid, right?" She smiled. "Permanent." But when I kissed her, it wasn't rushed or hidden. It was brief and respectful and real. The kind of kiss that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. Just us choosing each other in front of the whole world. Later that night, when the music faded and the guests left, we stood alone in the empty ballroom. The lights were dim, and the chandelier glowed softly above us, casting shadows across the floor. I was scared, she admitted, not of losing the hall, of being honest about what I felt. I brushed my thumb over her knuckles. Truth holds better than fear, I said. She rested her head on my shoulder, and for the first time since I met her, she looked truly at peace. But life doesn't stop testing what you build. The next morning, a legal notice arrived at the hall. Harrison wasn't done after all, and he had filed a formal complaint questioning the emergency permit and Elena's leadership. Elena read it once, then folded it carefully. "He wants a war," she said. I nodded. "Then we give him structure." And as I watched her stand taller, already planning her next move, I knew something deep and steady. Whatever was coming next, I wasn't letting go of her hand. Harrison's complaint didn't scare Elena the way it was supposed to. That surprised even her, I think. She read it once, set it down on her desk, and looked at me with this calm I hadn't seen before. "He thinks pressure makes people fold," she said. "It doesn't." The city review moved fast, too fast for Harrison to control the outcome. The evidence of sabotage mattered a lot. The verified permits mattered even more. And within a week, the complaint was dismissed quietly, the way bad plans usually are when light finally hits them. The hall survived, and Elena stayed as director, and so did I. Life didn't suddenly turn perfect after that. We still worked long hours. I still came home smelling like steel and grease. She still carried the weight of donors and legacy and endless expectations. But now the weight was shared between us. That made all the difference. Some nights we sat on the empty stage after everyone left with our legs dangling, talking about nothing important. Other nights we talked about everything. Fear and pride and the future we were building together. We learned each other slowly and carefully, like people who knew that rushing could break something good. One evening about 6 months later, she stood with me under the chandelier during a quiet walkthrough. "It held," she said softly. "Looking up, it was always going to," I replied. She smiled and leaned into me. I wasn't just talking about the building. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders, feeling the solid ground beneath us. For the first time in a long time, nothing felt like it was about to fall. Everything felt steady and sure. People still whispered sometimes about us, about how different we were. The blue-collar construction guy and the sophisticated hall director. Elena didn't flinch anymore when she heard the talk. One afternoon, she took my hand right there in the lobby and said, "I'm done hiding." Not to anyone in particular, just speaking the truth out loud because it needed to be said. I squeezed her hand. "I'm right here," I said. And that was all she needed to hear. You learn things when you work with steel. It doesn't care who you are or where you come from or what you want. It only responds to what holds. Integrity and patience and strength applied the right way at the right time. That's what we built together. Not something flashy or perfect or easy. Not something fragile that could break under pressure. We built something that could take the weight and stay standing, no matter what storm came our way. A year after that first cable snapped, Elena and I were standing in that same ballroom. She was wearing a white dress this time, and I was in a suit that felt strange but right. The chandelier hung above us, steady and strong, just like I promised it would be. Our families filled the chairs, and the stained glass windows let in colored light that made everything feel sacred. When I said I do, I meant it with everything in me. When she said it back, her voice didn't shake at all. We kissed under that chandelier, and I thought about how close we came to losing everything. How one split-second decision to stay and fight, instead of walk away, changed my entire life. Harrison sold his shares and left town eventually. The hall thrived under Elena's leadership. I kept working there, doing what I do best, making sure the building stayed safe and strong. But now I came home to her every night. Now we carried the heavy things together. Sometimes late at night, when the hall is empty, we still walk through the ballroom hand in hand. She'll look up at the chandelier and smile, and then she'll look at me with those dark, sharp eyes that saw something in a construction worker covered in dust and grease that nobody else saw. "You saved this place," she says sometimes. I shake my head. "We saved it," I tell her. Together. And that's the truth. Not the pretty version or the simple version, but the real one. The version where two people from completely different worlds chose each other when it would have been easier to walk away. Where we built something strong enough to hold when everything else was falling apart. The chandelier still hangs above us. The steel still holds. And every single day, I choose her all over again. That's what love is, I think. Not the moment you fall, but the choice you make to stay when gravity wants to pull everything down. The choice to be the thing that holds steady no matter what. Elena took my hand that night in front of everyone and said she couldn't hide it anymore. I told her I'd stay by her side no matter what. And I meant it then, and I mean it now, and I'll mean it for the rest of my life. Some things are just built to last.